But my balls keep telling me to let me just let me
I'm here with a very special interview, something I've been really looking forward to. I got Camelot, who spent 11 years at GameStop, and he made a video that got over 700,000 hits, probably on its way to 1 million. There's been 1 million. I'm pissed off at my boss at GameStop, but I think Camelot's was a lot different because it literally spans over a decade, and you can tell because he's an arcade one-up man that this man is serious about gaming. It's actually something that he enjoys. You're about to turn 30, so you literally put your heart and soul into this company and stayed. I guess that would be my first question for you. Did you plan to be in this business for the long haul?
It kind of just hit me in the face. I mean, I was at my previous job, and I walked out of it, and I really needed a job, and I just walked into basically my local GameStop at the age of 17 and was like, hey, I need a job. And the guy there, which, Egg, I'm sure everyone knows who that is by now.
That's a lot. That was your first boss, Egg, correct?
Yeah, so he actually, I walked in there, and he just hired me on the spot, and
wow.
I did not expect it to last over 11 years.
So. Yeah, I guess so. When did things, in your opinion, start to go a little bit south? And around what year was that?
GameStop had a really huge peak around 2011, 2012, and evened out in 2013. And as soon as we had that first year in 2014 where profits kind of dipped slightly, the company knee-jerk reacted and just 180 flipped everything. And really? Basically put more pressure on the store manager. Basically, what their excuse was, hey, the reason we're losing profit is directly, related to the store manager's leadership. I mean, we would actually get emails at the end of the year saying, hey, we're not going to give you your full bonus because, the profit is directly connected to the store manager. So
even though the market's completely changing. The market's completely changing.
Exactly.
Well, I talked to my wife.
They would basically just admit it's our fault.
She's a corporate woman, yeah. And she says, and I knew you were going to say that, she says that's normal. They know the market's changing. They know it's not the store manager's fault, but that knee-jerk reaction is, well, if we put even more pressure on these guys, we might be able to make ends meet. We might be able to get, what do they say, in the black, as they say. Do you think that was the motivation?
Well, I think, and it's an entirely different generation that is basically running these companies. And when they put the squeeze on a different generation that's like up and coming, they don't respond the same way people did maybe in the 80s or the early 90s. They don't respond positively. And I think in some situations, putting, slap pressure on your associates or your managers, can be a good thing. I don't think this generation currently responds in a positive way when you threaten their job on a daily basis.
What were some of the crazy things? I know they would threaten you. Is there any kind of stories that, give me a nightmare scenario?
Usually all the really bad experiences, like the scary ones, come from customers. I mean, I've had people, I'll be like, hey, I can't return this game. It's been over this period of time, like normal. And they would literally say, well, I'm going to be outside and I'm going to shoot you when you get off. And they would literally sit out there all day. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm dying today. So I had to get the cops to come up there.
To keep you from getting shot over a $20 trade-in. You're kidding me, right?
It's insane. They're called Power Up Pro cards.
And what do they do? Power Up Pro cards, just for the ignorant.
They got you. They basically, you would receive 10% off of a pre-owned game, and you would get a magazine for a year. They still have a $32 profit margin there.
Oh, wow. So they made a ton of money. And you had mentioned in their video, I mean, this is pretty serious if it's true, that if people came in and they did not have a good command of the English language, you were to charge them whether they wanted it or not, correct?
Yes, we called it the what do you like, whatever city you were in, the tax. Like if somebody said anything, if somebody came in was asking about it, like pointing at the receipt, it was like, oh, that's just the, for example, the
whoa!
Tax.
You were told to lie to them that it was like a state tax on the receipt.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it was almost okay. It wasn't like a directive. It wasn't like a directive from corporate or anything. It was more of a basically just say this in a joking way, and then they never like fixed it. It was never like, oh, don't do that. It was just like, oh, just say it's a tax, and then everybody laughed, and that was the end of the conversation. The way I think they looked at it is, hey, if you have somebody come back, return it. No big deal. But what about the 10 people that didn't come back?
You can't.
That's just pure profit, and they weren't really worried about it. So, as long as you're doing that, you're still making hundreds and hundreds of dollars, a day in pure profit.
This is going to be a really difficult question, quite possibly a dangerous one. Were they taking advantage of minorities, in your opinion?
People that didn't speak our language, oh, yes. On a daily basis.
Wasn't that hard? So, I mean, it is kind of a racist practice. I don't think that's unreasonable to say. That this is kind of a racist practice. They're picking on people that really can't defend themselves in a way that and part of it's their responsibility to learn the language, but ripping people off is ripping people off. I mean, that's heavy.
I mean, that's how they survive. And I mean, every time that something like that would come to light, or it would like come to the big stage on like some news outlet would pick it up, GameStop would release the same statement. We do not encourage our employees to do any kind of blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And even though they built the environment completely around having to do things like that. Oh gosh, man, I've had so many insane things happen where, like, for example, I have a really good story. It's more of a just a customer related story, but I had a guy one time. This was the worst thing I can remember. That's just disgusting. I had one guy come up to the counter once, and I was just standing there, like normal. And he was like, "Hey, man, do you have a bathroom?" And I was like, we don't have a public bathroom, but next door has a bathroom, which was like 30 feet away, man. And he was like, "Okay." And then he walks in the corner and just pulls down his pants and just takes this Triceratops-sized Jurassic Park crap and then walks out like nothing happened.
You're lying. That can't be true.
That is one big pile of shit.
It was so fast, man. I don't know how he shot it out that fast.
Was it that?
Like, what the hell?
Somebody wrote, some annoying kid wrote, "Oh shit" in the chat. Exactly.
Maybe he wanted to see what he could get for the trade-in.
What about robbery?
Oh gosh, I've been robbed several times at GameStop.
How does that go? What does that drill like?
Well, basically, they tell you to give them everything they ask for, unless it's more than $600.
What?
Because they want. Yeah, so basically, they want you to do cash drops through the day to take money out of the register and put it in the safe. So if they get more than $600, you'll be terminated for it.
Wait a minute.
And of course, you're not allowed to.
What are you supposed to do? Shoot them? You're supposed to give them everything they want. We're talking about guns and lives. And they said, hey, if it goes over $600, what a horrible company. You have been threatened with a cease and desist recently. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, they didn't send me a cease and desist. So I had an old associate, basically one of my old associates from a long time ago, worked for me back in 2014, 13-ish. He actually moved to the city that I live in now, and he actually still works for GameStop. And the store manager there had a visit from the district manager and the RD, which are my old district manager and RD, same two guys. And that's what they were basically questioning him about talking to me. And any manager or associate that has talked to me will be basically terminated. And I live in an at-will state. So you can be terminated for any reason, at an at-will state. And plus, this guy's, basically a part-time manager. So,
what is it, Scientology? I mean, really, like, you can't talk to you? What if you're related? I mean, this is insane. I can't imagine everything was bad. I'm sure there was like really great stuff that happened, friendships you made. Do you want to talk about some of the good stuff and some of the stuff that's really rewarding?
I have friendships that will last a lifetime, just because that company. I mean. And I've learned a lot. I mean, everything I took, with business, like my business sense that I took to, my next, job, next company, all my ideas and how I run things all come directly from what I learned there. So it's not all bad.
Your current company, don't mention them if you haven't already. They want you to shut down, I guess?
Well, basically, I had a meeting with, our HR staff, and someone from outside the company, tip them off to my YouTube channel, and then all of a sudden everybody in the company knows about my YouTube channel. It's a very small company, keep in mind. It's only a couple hundred employees maybe. and they tipped them off to it. And then HR basically interviewed me about it and was like, "Hey, we see this as a future liability." And then they dismissed to discuss my future with the company, and I've heard that before. I've heard that before. I've heard that exact line before, and I didn't last very long. And today I was told to not attend any of my conference calls, so I was like, "Oh, this is it." And my superior, he's a very southern guy that doesn't have a filter. And he was like, "Yeah, it looks like one of your one of your high ups from GameStop came in contact with our HR department." And I was not shocked. If that's true, I'm not shocked at all.
Absolutely, that's the first thing I thought. Not shocked. I bet my arm on it. I want everybody to hear that. They got this guy fired. We're living in an age of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and they now are the public square. And corporations are silencing us, even going as far as going to our jobs. We also know that CNN, when the Trump meme, when that guy put the CNN on the head of a Vince McMahon, these corporations are literally trying to silence us. They're if our right is to speak out loud, and the corporations are the megaphone, and if they can shut off that megaphone, then we don't have First Amendment rights. That's why this all needs to be declared the public square. What now, buddy? Where we go from here?
Well, I'll tell you one thing in my personal opinion. I think GameStop could have lasted a couple of years, maybe longer, maybe completely transformed the company into something that brought people in, almost like, for example, like some kind of arcade. Because they already had a small niche where people would just go in and play the interactives all day. Mm-hmm. So, just pulling people in, slowly changing it to that direction and using extremely good customer service and good practices to bring people in and maybe take a small hit on profit, but bring more people in to build more profit. Because if you have one person buying a $50 game versus 100 people buying a $40 game, you're making more profit that way. Yeah. So if they would have just went the right way, but you got to think they're going the way of trying to increase profit exponentially over a 6-month period to, increase shareholders' interest. That's the only thing that they're interested in, is to increase shareholder interest instantaneously. So the company's pretty much doomed in this climate anyway, because they're going to continue to try to do anything they can to basically make that last dollar before the current leadership basically resigns and goes to another company.
Yeah.
Which is sad, because it used to be a really great place.